Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call for the record. Mayor Lindsay,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Here.
Councilor Crane,
Here.
Councilor Weeks,
Here.
and Councilor Humber.
Here.
We have a quorum. You may proceed.
At this time, I'd ask for a motion to approve our agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve our agenda discussion of fiscal year 2026 budget.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Manager Weir?
Mr. Mayor, Council, and Clerk Strickland. So this is, first of all, I just want to reiterate, I know that we just now dropped off all the documents. And this is the beginning of the council's involvement in the budgeting process. But the budgeting process itself started in February, and we've had multiple meetings with our staff. I've met with most of them individually and gone over things. That said, these are the preliminary numbers. So really what we're gonna do today is, and by the way, we'll have 3 in total of these public hearings. And for the future, the public is invited. They're welcome to come up and ask any questions. We probably will try and do at least one of them in the afternoon so that it's more available to the public. That may be the final one in July. Because we do want public input. This is all public information. But again, these are preliminary numbers. After much discussion and consideration and analysis, this basically represents what our department heads are asking their budgets to be, with just a high level of reasonableness applied to them. There will be 2 more iterations before we go to the final budget. There'll be 1 more iteration before we submit the interim budget on June 1st. And then there will be another one before we submit the final budget on July 31st. But this is a good basis. There will be changes. So I want you to know that. What we're doing now is trying to educate the council with these numbers so that you can go back, do your homework, dig in, because if you're really gonna look at all of this, it's gonna take some time. And come back at the next meeting that we're gonna have in May. What date was that? Clerk Strickland, the 22nd of May?
Yes.
So hopefully at that meeting, you'll come back with questions. You'll come back with, what about this? Hey, I didn't notice this. I couldn't find this. Those types of questions from the council. And by the way, I want to state for the public record that anybody from the public that would like a copy of these, that they're welcome to come by and to the clerk's office, and the clerk will obtain a copy of these for the public if anybody's asking. But this is the detailed information of our budget. I tried to lay it out in, or actually Heather did it, but it's really based on the format that Councilman Humbert likes the best. You know, whenever I give him it in this format, he's always said good things. If I don't, he says other things. So I tried to appease him with this format. It is a lot of paper, but our budget's pretty big and pretty detailed, and anyhow. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna go right down the row. We're gonna start off with each of the departments in the general fund. And we're gonna have people go down and talk about, give you a 5-minute spiel on what's going on in their department. I've asked them to keep it to 5 minutes. They should be telling you the highlights. They should say, here's the big purchases we're looking at this year. Here's some projects we're trying to accomplish. Here's why I'm asking for this money. But at this point, the intent is not to get too heavy in the weeds, although you should feel free to ask whatever questions you want. But this meeting is really intended to educate the council and to give you the data you need to do your research. So in the next meeting, or in between now and the next meeting, you can meet with people, ask them questions, and make sure that the council understands what the budget is and what we're gonna ask you to vote to approve in May and again in July. Does that make sense? So I'm gonna start off with the revenue, which I think is the first page. Yeah. So that's the general fund revenue. I will tell you that this year's revenue, primarily because of ski season, was a little bit less than 4% down year over year. At least that's what we're anticipating. Obviously, we haven't hit the full year yet, but we still have 2 months of revenue left to get, 2.5, let's say. But I'm estimating it's gonna be between 3 and 4% down year over year, which actually is pretty good considering the snow year we had, because the ski mountain does generate a large percentage of our total annual revenue. So to have a rough year like we had and to still only be down a little bit, it says a lot. Quite frankly, it says a lot about, in my opinion, our marketing program that we did this year. I think it's the biggest contributor to us maintaining our levels, our revenue levels. I will tell you that we did spend a lot of money this year. You can see in this report, everything that we spent money on. We spent it on, in my opinion, great things that are gonna pay huge dividends for this village in the long run. We did 15 miles of roads this year. We were close to groundbreaking on a new fire station. We're in design phase for a new event center. You can see we're already doing the site work for a new concert venue. And a lot of other things. We put SCADA in, complete SCADA in for our water system. There's a lot of good things going on at the Village of Angel Fire, and it's reflected in the amount of money that was spent last year. I will tell you that next year we hope to have similar spends. Now it's going to be on different things, and I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder. So when the department heads get up, they're going to tell you what they're doing different next year. They'll tell you, you know, last year we did this, next year we're going to do this. But the spend should be similar year over year. It's going to be in a few different places, but it should be similar. And just so you know, we in the general fund, we spent about $3 million more than we had in revenue. And this is a big deal. You know, there's two sources of spend in government. There's your revenue, which is the money you earn in the current year, and there's your cash. The cash is money you earned in a prior year and didn't spend. So between our cash and our revenue, we're able to spend in the general fund about 3 million more than we got in revenue. We're anticipating doing the same thing next year. We'll spend about 3 million more. That's going to bring us down to having, besides our reserve, we have the 1.2 million in reserves that we're never going to touch because we legally can't unless it's allowed to by the state. But above that, we're at the end of this year, we're going to have about another $4 million in cash that is totally liquid and we can spend on whatever we want in just the general fund. Each of the individual funds have their own levels of cash, so there's about $2 million in cash for lodgers tax. There's another approximate $2 million or 1.5 million in cash for solid waste. The water department has approximately $2 million in cash. So each of these funds each have their own little pockets. But in the general fund, where our largest expenditures come from, what we're trying to do is, do the work we can in the time frame we have available. But over next year and the year after that, the general fund will have, at this pace, will have spent down most of its cash, other than reserves. So we are trying to keep an eye on reoccurring expenses to make sure they don't exceed our revenues. And we're on special projects, we're just spending the cash that we have to try and accomplish things like the fire department and so on. Or the new fire station. So as a high level overview, that's kind of our goal. We're spending in the general fund about $3 million a year for last year, this coming year and the following year in excess of our revenue. We'll still have about $1 million left in cash at that point. And then hopefully we will have accomplished a lot of things. The other good thing is that I think with some of the expenditures we have targeted this upcoming year, I think our revenue is going to grow quite a bit. When Greg Ralph comes up and talks about the lodgers tax, I think you're going to see some growth there for a couple of reasons I'll let him explain. But keep in mind, when our lodgers tax goes up, it's almost linear. It's proportional. Our GRT goes up. Even though there are expenditures on different things, and there is some direct relation between lodgers tax and GRT, but really what happens is lodgers tax goes up and people go spend money on dinner and lift tickets and those things that causes our GRT to go up. And it's fairly well correlated, not exactly, but close. And so as we grow our primary industry, which is tourism, I think you're going to see revenues pick up everywhere. You're going to see them pick up in the water departments because there's more people in town using water. Not so much in solid waste. It's dependent on the number of properties and so on, but you'll see other increases. And I think that when we get to that third year down the line, we'll actually have more than $1 million of cash beyond our reserves. Hopefully, if we grow this right, that's what will occur. So what we're gonna do is just kind of go through the general fund and call up the departments. The first department you see on there is the courts. And unfortunately, I don't think there's anybody here from the courts to speak, but it's almost a rollover year over year with the expenses there. It's not a big expenditure item anyhow. So
The revenue was on top.
I'm sorry.
With the revenue on top.
Yeah. So if you set the revenue aside, I think the next one is 1009. You'll see the courts. You'll see at the top the description. And just speaking on behalf of the courts, it's pretty much business as usual there. There is a little decline in revenue, but that was a statutory decline because they changed some of the fees that the courts can charge. But anyhow, the courts is not that it's not that big of a number to begin with. But so if we want to go past the courts to the next one, which should be admin, and that should be administration. So the big changes in administration really is changing of personnel that are in administration. We do have an increase. We've added some personnel to administration, like Rocky as a project director, is under the administration expense. And so that's primarily where you're gonna see increases, and there are increases there, and it's pretty much all related to personnel and increases in personnel. We also are anticipating a pretty big increase in our insurance rates. That's reflected in there, and those are increasing for two reasons. Number one, because insurance is increasing everywhere. Also, our exposure to wildfire is impacting our insurance rates. And on top of that, we've had several payouts on policies this year, and anytime you have that, your insurance rates always go up as well. Any questions on admin? So if you'll go on to the next one, should be finance. And again, the finance department is pretty flat year over year. I will tell you that the actual expenses they're flat as far as budget. The actual expenses, we're probably gonna come closer to meeting budget in the finance, because this is the closest we've been to being fully staffed in a long time. We're still short one head count, but they've been down significant number, 3 and 4 people over the years. So you'll notice that our budget is actually only increased negligibly year over year. But I would anticipate actually coming closer to hitting that budget, because we're about $300,000 under budget right now in the finance department with 2 months left to go. So we will come in under budget, and that's mainly just because we're actually staffed up as opposed to not having enough staff. I will tell you one other thing that we're trying to do that isn't fully developed yet is in admin. Historically, the village has consolidated expenses into admin. So for example, IT services. We spend about $150,000 or $180,000 a year on IT services, and that's been charged to admin. This year, we are gonna try and break that out by department. We are going through a process of trying to allocate more and more expenses, because people consolidate them because it's easier. But to me, it doesn't give people a good depiction of what it costs to actually run a department. So if I'm just throwing all these expenses into admin, like insurance is another example. If I'm just plugging them all into admin, you have this big admin budget, and it doesn't really tell the whole story. If you break those expenses out and you actually charge them to the departments, it gives you a better feel for what it truly costs to run that department. And so we are working on breaking out pieces. I don't know that all of it's gonna happen this year, but we're gonna do a better job this year, and then maybe by next year's budget, we'll have the allocations all set up and broken out. So you will see the admin, when that happens, you'll see the admin budget come down a little bit, probably next year. Okay, and then next is human resources. We don't have Tammy here.
She's on
So
the
I will tell you that in human resources.
She's on.
Oh, Tammy, are you joining us?
I am on there.
Oh,
I was
okay. You
I
get
was
to
just
talk
pulling
about
my
your-
budget up.
Well, the one thing I'll tell you is that, when we took over the village, HR had no budget because Tammy was an admin and all the expenses were lumped into admin. So this year, we're actually breaking Tammy out. So the biggest part of these expenses that you'll see in the budget are payroll related and then, some training. We will be breaking HR related attorney fees into the HR department instead of under admin. So those are the primary expenses you see here. As you can look on this chart, you'll see in prior years, there was no expenses under HR. And that just doesn't make sense to me. Why do you have a department, especially one as important as HR, and not understand what that department cost you? It's all lumped into admin. So this is another great example of the breakout that we're trying to do over the next 2 years.
So, Brett, when you get all the way over to the right side, the last two columns, one says proposed interim and approved interim.
So that's a great question, Chuck. I'm sorry. It's just proposed interim is what we have right now. So there's 3 steps in this process. There is what I call the wish list, which is the first one. It says enter budget request here. That's your wish list. So that's like, I tell them, don't worry about money. If you want something, ask for it. And that's what they put in the wish list. Then I meet with them and talk with them and go, we really can't do that. So you might as well pull that out. So then they make adjustments and they come back to the proposed interim. And then in May, after further negotiations to make sure we fine tune everything, the approved interim is what you'll be looking at the meeting in May. And then that's what will get submitted to DFA is the approved interim. And then there'll be another in July, there'll be another column added, which is the approved final. And that's what will get submitted to DFA for our final budget. Great question, Chuck. Sorry, I should have explained that.
Is Tammy gonna,
Where's Reggie?
well, hang on, we're gonna give Tammy a shot, or did you already?
Oh, Tammy, did you want to say something?
Well, the expenses, some of the expenses, I don't have very many expenses on there except for, like travel. I want to make sure that I come down to Angel Fire a couple times a year to visit and work in-house. And if going on. And then we have some training from David. We had previous training on it, but we'd like to do a team building training for all employees, every employee in the village. And then we have another training for the directors it is going to be for, let me see, conflict resolution. And I think these trainings are very important to keep the teams build the teams up and really have a good team building and learning how to function as a team all together. So these trainings that I put in there are very important, I feel.
Anything else, Tammy?
I don't have anything else unless anybody has any questions.
All right, well, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
You're welcome.
Okay, so next is planning and zoning, and again, what you'll see here is, like, for example, we've had Santos providing planning and zoning services to us for several years, and it was billed to admin. It wasn't billed to planning and zoning. So you'll notice the $40,000 under other contractual services. That's what we're budgeting for Santos's continued support of planning and zoning. The one thing that we are looking to do is to move, Joel's expenses, personnel expenses out of planning and zoning and moving them to the police department. So I think the paperwork you have today, we haven't moved that out of planning and zoning yet. So the paperwork you see today, has at least part of Joel's expenses in, planning and zoning. So the payroll is gonna be updated, when we do the approved final interim. But you can see the items that, Reggie added, and I don't know, Reggie, if you wanna talk about your plans.
The 3,000 for software, I think is a little bit high, but rather than coming back and looking for more money, we're probably looking at a 2,000 figure. It's an ArcGIS license. It's ArcGIS 10.8. It's the standard geospatial license for mapping. And what you're gonna see in a demo probably next week, if I can pull it all together, is being able to pull up a map with all of our zones. Another layer are the lots. And from that lot, if you can picture searching for Starbucks in Albuquerque, you get these little red dots. Click on the red dot and it tells you what's being permitted. And what that means to you is if you're the compliance fellow who's out there looking at things, he sees a new construction, sees a permit, sees what you call it, a culvert there, he sees a permit. He sees a fence, but there's a detached garage and there's no permit. On the spot, he knows that there's no permit for that garage. Trying to move it to a totally automated system where both here in the building and any sensors in the field can see that those are out of compliance. So that's ArcGIS and software. The other one is Adobe Pro. Go ahead.
Will he be able to do that from his vehicle and a tablet as well, or do you have to be in the office to access that
We
information?
just talked about that this morning. Rather than going high tech with satellite communications and everything else, he takes his phone, a cheap iPad, he hotspots the iPad, and he and I can talk electronically. So he can hit that dot, share his screen with me, and I can go, hey, there's no permit there. Or he told me it was a simple $200 replacement of a deck. And it ends up that he's extended it all the way around his house. Those kind of things are on the spot rather than going through weeks and complaints with neighbors and everything else. You can see it. The other one is Adobe Pro. And with Adobe Pro, I can create forms. I can create the application for form encroachment assigned. Put it on the website for all the public to see. They punch it in, I extract the data, put it in a database, and now all of that's automated. And what that's really hugely important is the files that I have. I look at each one of these files and it's handwritten. Handwritten multitude of documents with handwritten writing there. You can imagine it's hard to read. Where it's really important is numbers. Is it 668 Deer Trail? Is it 688 Deer Trail? You can't read the numbers. I'm trying to automate all those forms so that it's easier, it's quicker, and it's all in a typewritten font as opposed to handwritten. That'll speed things up as well because somebody can pull that up and say, the status of my permit is I still need to get over the water for a meter size. They can see the status online. It avoids people coming through that front door and complaining all the time and not knowing what's going on. So anyway, those are the two pieces of software. I think 3,000 is a little high, but you don't want me, you'd rather have me turn back the money.
I have another question. Bulk fuel and oil, is that fuel for the code enforcement vehicle or what's that on?
No, that's for Reggie has a truck.
Okay.
Public Works had a spare truck that was an older truck and we've given that to Reggie at this point. We may, depending upon how things go, we may come back and ask for a newer vehicle later, but we didn't want to ask right now. We have something to use.
But that would be fueling that vehicle.
And the rest of that's been pulled forward from previous year.
I don't know, Santos makes site visits currently, especially when it's giving out addresses and so on.
Well, my fingers crossed and thumbs pressed, we're not gonna have to do that as much. When we pull this GIS data from UNM that he's been working, right now he's got a couple glitches he's working out before he can go public with that. we're gonna be able to look right at it and see that's lot 47, that's lot 51, it has to be 49. So far, so good. I've seen the data, I've seen some of it, and where they're running into conflict is where they've duplicated. Inadvertently have duplicated two streets the same way, so they're knocking out all of the boats. And there's a lot of data in there already. That's what I know, and like I say, I'm gonna try to have a demo ready for you next week. So you can actually see it.
Bogard. Next up is law enforcement. Great.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Clerk. So I've got a very short PowerPoint and all it really is 8 slides of the various budgets and then a conclusion page where I talked briefly about things. So thank you for having us here today. If we can go to number 2. Number 2, I'm starting with the easier ones first. This is the LER fund, the Law Enforcement Retention Fund. It's basically, recruitment fund. It was awarded to the village three years ago. We are in the second cycle. This coming budget will be the third and final year of that retention. It started as, I believe, 150,000, and then the second year that we're in now was 75. Next year will be 37.5. So it's basically a revenue in and an expense out. I cannot account for why it is totaling those and not putting a 0 at the bottom. Yeah, that should be a 0 line item showing that what's being brought in is being expended. Any questions on that one? Told you I'd start with the simple ones first. Next slide is the LEPF. This is the Law Enforcement Protection Fund. It is based on the village size and population. Sorry, did you have something? Okay. It's based on the village size and population, and you get a fixed amount, and then you get $1,500 per certified officer under employment. And we've filled out and done our grant for that. Having added another person this year, it is $104,000 that we're going to show as revenue. So it did increase by $1,500 from the current budget. So what we're projecting, because we have 6 total officers now. It is kind of very similar. I've got a couple of things I'm pulling out of that: uniforms and laundry expenses. 6,000 for travel and training I'm taking out of the state grant fund. 1,500 for field supplies, replacing flashlights and expendable things that wear out over time. Safety supplies, 34,500. That is where we will upfit and build the new police unit for next year out of that line. I put 500 in other operational, in printing, publishing. We could buy citations, we could buy printed material, we could buy coloring books for kids. Certain things like that are allowable in there. And then the large expense being 60,000 for the vehicle, which I would anticipate not getting that ordered until September, October, have it in service by hopefully January of next year. So that, if you notice, the total 104,000 revenue with the expenses comes out to 0. So we have all that accounted for it to be expended. Any questions on that before I move ahead? And I put these up just because I wasn't sure you was going to have it in front of you, and it might be easier for you to see. The next slide is the Law Enforcement General Fund. This has several adjustments. If you'll notice all the little red triangles throughout the entered budget line item towards the right, those are notes. There's about 12 pages of them that I printed out, so we did make good notes into that.
But Jerry, I just want to say the paper size document you have should include the notes.
Okay. And we won't have time, I'm limited to apparently 5 minutes, I thought that was per budget, and so I've got 5 budgets to go over, so this one, I think there may be some questions that come up today or even later on. I'm showing some increases for, full-time employee. I'm asking for a 7th full-time, peace officer for the village. Overtime, you're gonna notice that that's going from 37,000 and I'm asking for 140,000. Don't panic on that because in that overtime line item, I am moving everything into that line item. Everything meaning regular overtime, our standby time, our shift differential pay, everything into one line item instead of having that broke out into 4 different ones. So when you combine that and with the addition of a 7th officer, if that's granted, I'm projecting or asking for more, of course.
That includes Joey.
And that would also include code enforcement, Joel being added into that. Para is a considerable cost. Projecting that at 200,000, that actually is probably going to reduce somewhat. No idea what they're going to be doing, but with the 75% pay down, that's going to be no longer an administrative cost, it will be to each department. Then I wanted to project that a little bit high, and as the numbers come in tighter, we can adjust that. The same with health benefits. I'm projecting that at 105,000. And you're kind of all the way down through there doing that. Didn't change much in the lower portions of this at all. I did have I don't think it's going to be on your printed copy. It shouldn't be, but you'll notice I'm not asking for a vehicle out of the general fund budget because graciously the village just allowed me to purchase one out of this year, so I took it out of next year. That was because they had one in Los Lunas that was readily available, met our specifications, so we purchased it now. We don't have to wait until October to have it in service by January. But the next one, well, of course, as I've already said, would come out of the Law Enforcement Protection Fund. Total amount that I'm asking for is $1,591,000. That's up from the 1.245 that we're currently in this year. And again, most of that is bringing Joel's salary in is $57,000 of that. That's code enforcement. So that will be coming out of another general fund going into ours if I'm given the 7th officer and then little increase in overtime. That's the biggest expenses there.
Can you clarify, 7th officer, what will that do to your shift scheduling?
That will give me 24/7 coverage with no standby or on-call time. For the most part, it won't be. And it gives me what I'm equally passionate about is having 2 officers at prime times, weekend nights, even day shifts. Court times and appearances, things like that. It will give us 2 officers to respond to more critical calls, domestics, crimes of violence and things. It gives us more because we're acquiring some of that in overtime currently as it is because an officer is being called out, but when a call out to be a backup, that's sometimes as much as 20 minutes away. And I would love to have that built in to our base schedule as much as practical.
And if I may add, Council, it also allows for coverage. So we're gonna have more training. Our guys are gonna go into training more, our court time. So it allows for coverages for those holes that'll be vacant.
Yes, and it is reduced a little bit. I'm gonna go back to the first line, full-time employees. I did build in a 10% salary increase across the board for officers. I understand that that's, but this was my wish list, right? So I wished, And I would really like to see that. It is difficult to compete against some larger agencies, and we have assembled a very fine team of officers here in the village. I'm very proud of each and every one. You know, you guys hired me. I made you the promise I'd bring some quality officers here, and I really feel like we have the best team that we could have right now. I would love to supplement that with one more. Are there any other questions on this before I run out of my 5 minutes? All right, hearing none, we'll move on then to the next one. This is the motor vehicle, which I haven't made a whole lot of adjustments into this, other than you'll notice in the actual year-to-date column for full-time employees, kind of down about 2/3 of the way down. We've only expended 39, just short of 40,000 at mid-year. So I'm went to 54,000 for that. And if you look up at part-time employee, that was a 0 line item in previous year budgets. To keep motor vehicle open, to better serve the community, I'm budgeting 15,000 for a part-time employee to cover when the primary clerk is at training or sick leave, whatever that would come up, vacation time and so forth, so we can try to keep that open. So the total on that line item or on that budget comes to 106,660 in the projection column. Any questions on that one? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the next one, which is the GRT account, which is number 6. There it is on the screen. This one made a note in here, again, the red marks, for utilities. I guess I need to back up a little bit. Manager Ware put to the department heads and challenged us to come up with a rough estimate, or, you know, a best guess, if you will, of what it really costs to run our departments. And with that, we have electricity, we have propane, and we have our internet services. It could be paid out of this. So you'll notice that in there, but in further discussions, I think that's gonna go into the general fund budget that we've already reviewed, and I forgot to mention that. It's in there as well. Now, because my office or the building that I'm housed in has the police department, the courts, and motor vehicle, we're gonna split those utility costs, 60% for the police, 20% would be paid by the court, and 20% by the motor vehicle office. So kind of a split up, if you will, because as I said, we share the office space, the heat, the internet, everything else. Are there any questions? Oh, and then this is very important. I didn't budget out, or am not anticipating budgeting out anything else other than we have an encumbered debt for the police department. We have this year's payment and 3 more. That's a $75,000 yearly payment plus the interest. And so I projected those, the interest to be 11,500, the payment of 75,000. I'm not touching anything else out of the GRT account because we need that to go to the new fire department building as much as practical. Or at least I'm in agreement to that. So I think that covers everything on slide 6. Slide 7, we have the courts budget, which Manager Weir presented earlier. We also have a corrections budget. For the corrections budget, this pays for the housing of inmates and associated costs to that. As you know, at last council meeting, I presented the new contract with the Maldonado Raton Detention Center. We're projecting $10,000 into that. If you will notice, the expense of care of prisoners is zeros in the previous year line item budgets. I cannot give you an answer why that is. I know there were expenses out of that. And I'm still trying to wrap around that to get you exact numbers.
Maybe it's like never invoiced.
And that may be, if it is, I'm gonna keep quiet about it. And then, you'll notice another one, there's in custody expenses, the, blue one that I left highlighted there. That would come from this, and this is if we have a use of force incident and we have to take somebody to the hospital, or if we have to take somebody to the hospital for a blood draw or another medical emergency. While they're still in our custody, the village's custody, and not yet the detention center's custody, we would be responsible for paying that hospital bill. So I projected $4,000 for that.
Jerry, I just want to add to that, the detention center may require some of those medical expenses prior to being admitted. So like, you can't take somebody that's drunk in there, they have to be tested, or maybe it's not drunk, it's if they're on drugs or something, you have to.
If there's an impairment or a medical emergency.
So they won't even take them, they'll just say, no, you take them to the hospital. Get them tested. We have to pay that expense.
Manager is correct, and that would be our obligation to pay that if they are in our custody. If there's no questions on that one. Then in summary, it's just written up here, the preceding budget or projections from round 1 and 2, the most significant increase is a 10% for full-time employees. And the addition of a 7th officer and bringing CEO, the code enforcement officer, into the police department's budget. And again, that was a wash from one account to the other. Sir.
So I do have the retention, credit. Can you speak to that again? I know it reduces from 150 to 75.
So this year we're at 37.5.
So this next officer, the 7th officer, you're looking at possibly recruiting, we don't have that benefit.
We do not. Right now, Alvis May is being paid from that. Well, right now, there's 75,000, and I believe it's Officer Hott and Officer May. Heather, yeah, I think that's correct. But next year's budget, the one that we're talking about, that will reduce again in half, so it'll be 37.5. That will complete that 3rd-year cycle. I fully intend on applying for that recruitment grant again, because there's 2 LERFs. There's law enforcement recruiting, which is the one that we have currently. There's law enforcement retention, which pays officers out of a state fund, pays the village, the village is a pass-through to pay them a dividend to stay employed and not retire, even if they're eligible, things like that. So this one that I'm talking about is the LER. It is the recruitment grant that we currently have.
And do we have a retention grant in place at all right now?
Sort of. We're working on it, sir, is the best answer I can give you. Lieutenant Strickland has spent some time addressing this. There are many agencies across the state that are running into the same thing that the village is. So currently, none of us are expecting a check to stay on as an employee under the Retention Act. We're hopeful, but it's probably it'd be premature for me to say that that's gonna happen. And as I said, the LERF, that we're in the 3rd year, and I do intend to apply for that again if it becomes available or when it becomes available. The general fund overtime does show a substantial increase. This is mostly due to combining the overtime, the on-call and the holiday, and I didn't put it in there, but standby into one line item instead of 4 separate line items. I've combined the training and travel line item, and per diem into one as well. Those were separated before. It's all for the same thing. It's the travel, the per diem costs and the tuition costs. So I'm putting that all into one line item. To simplify. And then you'll notice there are some other contractual increases, such as the Axon body cameras that we now have, 1st-year contract of 5 years, the dash cameras that are in all of our units now. So we've got a contractual expense of, I think that's around $20,000 that I've projected out of the general fund for next year. The Flock contract, that's the roadside cameras, the license plate reader cameras that we are contracted with, and of course, Mark 43, which is our RMS records management system. And we actually have two expenses for that. We have the reporting system that gives us all of our database that we're pretty happy with, and I'm understanding a lot better than I was 6 months ago. And we also have the warrant management system that has a few $1,000s a year cost for that. And as I'd already mentioned, projecting an increase of some amount for the health insurance, workman's comp, para. And my only use of the GRT account is for the building payment and interest. And that is my presentation. I'll stand for any questions. I'll see you back in May. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Next up is our Fire Chief, Jason Vance. Evening, Mayor, or Mayor, Councilors, Strickland, Senator Weir. I don't have everything loaded up. That was actually a great idea. Maybe I'll have that prepared next time. I was generally gonna give an overview of each of the accounts that we have. So I'll probably start off with the most difficult one. Everything would be downhill from there. That'd be the 110 general fund that you have in front of you, I believe. Did want to point out, most of this was inherited, not prepared by me, in the beginning, so. I believe there was some confusion when this budget was prepared. We were in an interim chief phase. And so there was a little bit of miscommunication. For example, a 40-hour employee works 2,080 hours per year. Fire department employee, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but because of the 4896 schedule, they actually work 106 hours per pay period. And overtime over 106 hours per pay period, opposed to a 40-hour employee who gets overtime over 80 hours per pay period. So there were some discrepancies as far as our overall budget for how much full-time employees were going to cost us versus part-time employees versus PRN employees. Another example of that is we only have one part-time employee listed, yet there was an excess of money in that account for part-time employees, yet there was little to no money budgeted for PRN employees, and we use PRNs quite a bit to supplement our staffing. So you'll see quite a few changes in the PRN part-time and PRN and part-time especially, but some in full-time as well for those employees. It also affected the bottom line for para distributions and insurance and so forth. So I believe we have it all straightened out now. Keep in mind, we have 3 full-time people on duty per day, 24/7, and we occasionally supplement a 4th and sometimes a 5th on busy weekends, especially Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, when we have a lot of travel this year. In the beginning of my tenure, starting in July, there was quite a bit of overtime. But with the addition of the Firefighter Recruitment Act and us hiring on 3 more people full-time, it's brought a significant reduction to that overtime. So I expect at least a 15 to 20% reduction in overtime for next budget cycle. Any questions so far? Something else that was not anticipated in this budget that you'll see reflected on the bottom line is the cost for a medical director. We did not anticipate that cost in the beginning, but we will be picking that up for Dr. Rossi. Something else we did not expect is there was a budgeted line item for a inspector. Since that position has typically been a 40-hour work week employee. We've had difficulty having somebody come up here and do 8 AM to 5 PM, 5 days a week, or even 4 10s. So that was the request that we had in the last, or was it 2 meetings ago, where we asked to change that position. We have since hired somebody on board, a second person who has inspector qualifications, and they will help us out, and we're working with the state to streamline that process, to work in conjunction with them to be able to do all of our business fire inspections. We also solved the STR inspection, and that was like a heavy lift for that position, so I think we have that solved. Another unexpected occurrence is the AIM grant suspension that we had. We have our fire ambassador who was on board, who was being paid for by the AIM grant, and due to the suspension, the fire department picked up her wages for a short term during that time. So I'm proposing that we keep a little bit in reserves in case some of the AIM grant or any of the other firefighter recruitment grants or anything else gets suspended. We'll be able to retain those people until it's put back in.
Is that back in place now?
It is.
Was it with back pay?
No back pay, but they're allowing an extension. So fire department picked up the cost for the duration that the AIM grant was suspended, but they did allow us to extend her contract by an additional 2 months, I believe.
How long was it suspended?
2 months. One of the things in here, I'm not sure made it I probably didn't get it in by the time you had revisions here. I did put a placeholder in for an ambulance for $360,000. I just wanted to remind Manager Weir and the council that there's a 3-year build time for an ambulance. Right now, we're sitting pretty good. We have an ambulance in the shop. The repairs are almost complete, and we'll be getting that back soon. So we're okay, but it's gonna take us 3 years to get a replacement. So we'll have to keep that in mind and maybe start putting that in the budget. If not this next fiscal year, the following fiscal year, you might want to consider that. So you'll see that. And in my proposed budget, I'll probably back that cost out of there. So that should come off the bottom line. That's all I have for the 110. In general, are there any questions? Actually, sorry, I just did think of one other thing. I did in my, the future states wish list. I did add 3 more firefighter EMTs, to the staffing to make 4 per shift. So if we did ever want to try to, reduce our ISO rating into even yet a lower level, we'll have to see what the next ISO evaluation gives us, if we're able to successfully lower our ISO or not. But any employees that you add on will significantly help us towards lowering the ISO. So I did put that in the budget into my wish list originally, but I will back that out of my proposal as we move forward.
Do we track anywhere in here, costs associated with mutual aid? To Eagle Nest specifically, or is that part of this budget? Are we, it's just, it's in here, but it's not tracked separately?
We don't have an itemized list. We do, however, track how many times we go outside of the village. So I'm able to pull that data from our monthly reports, INFRS reports and so forth. It may behoove us to pay special attention and try to back out the itemized cost per call or something like that, depending on personnel. But we have not done that this far. Next item or next budget, okay? The next most difficult one probably is the 516. That is the wildland and slash budget. Again, I'll start with the wish list items that we have for that one. It's last on my list, so it may be the back of your packet, I would guess.
Yeah, they're in, the packets in bundle order. So
would it help you all if I just move back and go through in order? I can do that.
I mean, perhaps we'll still be shuffling.
which one is it?
516.
516.
Repetition.
Sheets at the very top. Yes, toward the, don't have any from the bottom. We five one six one.
Is it all fire protection?
Six hold. I think that's what it's labeled on. Yes, yeah, fire protection, 25-26 fire protection / wildland, yes, sir. May I see how yours is sorted? Is it just numerical order? Make sure it's the top eight. Not as it's number. Yeah, it is. Just in numerical order. So I'll start with, again, the wish list for 516. Keep in mind that the slash departments on your sheets will be shown as a 51600. The next four numbers will be 3002. The items that are listed 5163012 are for wildland. And so they will not be commingled on your list. They should be 3002 first and then 3012 after that. I'm gonna bounce around a little bit, just to the nature of how I have them sorted. I did wanna bring up that we have started our defensible space ordinance and we have made steps to try to increase that. Our amount of slash processing and so forth. If at some future states we decide to start lot thinning and clearing out evacuation routes and et cetera on our own and not rely on the surrounding grants that are being put in place. We would most likely need some heavy equipment machinery for that. So in my wish list items, I had placed originally an $800,000 line item for a buncher feller. This is a piece of equipment that is based on an excavator and allows you to basically drive up to a tree, grab it, saw it in half, turn it, spit it out and cut it in lengths, and it's basically logging equipment. And it probably would be the most effective, cost-effective means of clearing a large amount of lots or a large amount of space,
Right,
at least out of money involved. So if you were to ever consider anything like that, that would be the cost of that. I'll back that out of the budget for our next go rounds. But that one is listed as 5163002 and the last five are 58080, and that's equipment and machinery, $880,000 for a buncher filler. Other things that are in need of replacement for the slash program are both of the grapple trucks that we have quite a bit of use on them. And we're anticipating that increasing. We don't know by how much by implementing the DSO. But in some future states, we should probably consider replacing one of those. We could also consider getting a smaller unit like a chipper shredder that's mounted to like a skid steer type of piece of equipment if we want to start clearing out lots or doing our own chipping and shredding, not using the Vermeer trailer style that we have. So that's something to consider. I'll jump to the wildland department at the 3012. One of the line items in there for vehicles. In some future states, we should consider replacing the Type 3. That's the engine that goes out on deployments most often. Two of the three deployments that we had last year, we did have a breakdown while it was out of town in Oregon and when they responded to the California fires as well. So we had to take it to a local shop. We had to have it towed. We had to have replacements, and they were small things like tensioner arms on the idler pulley and things like that. They were small things, but yet that truck is getting older and older. The replacement cost for that will likely be around, I have 240 listed here, but I believe that's a little bit low. I think will be more like 360 to 420 for that vehicle.
What kind of vehicle is it?
A fire engine, a wildland fire engine specific, Type 3 or Type 4. Really, the major difference being how much water it pumps, how much water it carries, and the type of equipment that's carried by that vehicle. Otherwise, the budget for that is, relatively straightforward. Not any significant changes in, personnel or, otherwise. Let me see if I have a couple more notes on here. Keep in mind for this fund and for other funds, we do have a couple of grants that are affecting the budgets. The YCC, youth, grant is, we do get money for that, so that will partially offset some of the, employee costs that we have for those. Depending on the number of hires, I think off the top of my head, I think we're currently employing 4 or 5, applying 4 or 5 people towards the YCC grant. So we'll recoup some of those employee costs.
Under wildfire reimbursements, is that wildland team when they're out on deployment? Is that what that?
Yeah, so, if you look at the reimbursements, we have the wildfire protection fee listed, wildfire reimbursements. Out of our budget, we have to pay for our employees while they're out. We have to pay for their overtime that they incur. Their rate is significantly higher when they're out on deployments, and so that's why you'll see some of those overtime budget numbers as high as they are. But correct, when the reimbursements come back through, they come through wildfire reimbursements.
And so we don't budget, we don't plan on any reimbursements in, because I don't see anything for the coming years.
Yeah, I just learned of where to find the reimbursements or actually our revenue for the departments, a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So I'll let Manager Weir speak to that point.
No, so basically, with the wildland team, we're anticipating, about $500,000 in revenue. It didn't make it onto this round of the budget, but it'll be there for the next one.
And really, it's difficult to project how often we'll get called out, whether we have local fires or fires abroad, whether we're spending our time here or not. So, difficult number to project how often we'll be deployed.
And did you just say that you really didn't see a change in any personnel over the next fiscal year?
Correct.
So you had 150,000 budgeted, actual to date is 92,000. Yet requested 225.
Yeah, which item are you looking at, sir?
3002-51020 full-time employees.
On the one I have in front of me here, I'd be happy to show it to you. I have that adjusted as well. I did change that to 181,000. Let me look at my notes for that. Oh, what I had included in that is, if at some point, if we decide to fund the fire ambassador, we should probably include that within the slash program. I think it's probably the best bet, either that or the wildland program. So those weren't anticipated, and if we do have an increase in slash product because of the DSO and stuff, we may be able to, or we may need to hire additional slash personnel that would not be deployable or be deployable, but be able to alternate with some of the other folks that we have in wildland to have people to stay back to take care of slash.
I guess the question I have for you too is, as Chief Hoger pointed out in his presentation, he had submitted for a 10% raise for his officers. Do you have a across the board raise that you're proposing, or how have you structured that? All your departments.
Yeah, generally a single level increase. It's my understanding that we have a grade and then we have a level on our village pay scale. I am proposing a single level increase for the majority of personnel. We've had a couple of people that have gotten additional certificates like firefighter 1 and 2 added on to their paramedic. We've had one gentleman from Wildland get his engine boss certification, so we may have an exception for those. But generally a single level increase that from what I saw is between 4% and 4.8%-ish, depending on which level you're at.
Thank you.
Any other questions about wildland or fire protection. Move to, guess we'll just go back to the beginning of the packet and, emergency services ambulance, 110, 3003. I don't know that we have a whole lot in there to cover. It's just a single GL within that, budget.
Sorry, is this a separate sheet for us?
It'd be, the second one you had listed after the 110 should be the 110-3003, or it could be added in at the end. Let me open it up real quick and let's see what I see.
Did you include that other in the second?
I don't think it's good, though.
Yeah, pretty normal.
Okay.
It's not in here.
Line item.
It's a single line item.
The 20600 ER services, emergency response services.
And it's got two roles.
Just a few line items in there that we still use. They generally pertain to the ambulance services. And we anticipate a $40,000 EMS Fund Act application for that. We did successfully submit that application and are anticipating that we should be able to get that grant for $40,000. We have had one vehicle that excuse me. Manager Weir, do you remember the repair maintenance vehicle is the 147? Was that the lower review?
That's this year. Yeah, so that's actually this year, we spent that on, I'd have to go look at the details, but it's not, we don't have anything budgeted for anything.
Okay. Yeah, so the line item I was looking at was for repair maintenance vehicles. I think that might be tied to the ambulance replacement that we got, but I'm not sure. We don't have anything budgeted for this next upcoming fiscal year. The only thing we do have is $40,000 for the EMS Fund Act that I mentioned before, employee training and some subscription and dues for recertification. So. The 209 would be next. Those are state fire funds. This is one of the funds that went through a significant audit last year. We've received approval from the state fire marshal to any funds that we get from the state fire marshal. We would anticipate, I believe it's $425,000. And we would use that towards the new fire station build. And we've also submitted for the carryover for the unspent funds that we received in previous years and just submitted for that this week. So all money that we would get for state fire funds, we would apply to the new fire station. And that'd be $425,000 this year and all the carryover funds that we've had from previous years, which I believe totaled around $600,000. Any questions about those? Sure. Okay. The law enforcement recruitment fund, we have a single GL that is included in the packet. For both, I don't have it.
I didn't bring out the 0920 because
We are currently participating in firefighter recruitment fund We have 3 personnel that are being applied to the, 3 that were awarded to us. They had, I believe the schedule was, 100%, 50%, and then 25%. So we'll be entering the 50% phase of that, recruitment, fund act. We did not take full advantage of that. We missed a couple of quarters for 1 or 2 employees, but, we now have all 3 hired as of this quarter. And John Schomburg was the last hire for that. So as time goes on, that schedule will decrease. We'll have to pick up more and more of those firefighter salaries, money. So it'll be 50% in this upcoming fiscal year. And I think that's it. 305.
Yeah, the only other one is the public safety building fund, the 305 that Chief Ogriff spoke about. So, the money that Chief Ogriff budgeted will go to the police. The rest of it's all gonna go to the new fire station.
And keep in mind, just a reminder that we got 5.22 million awarded by the state governor and Senator Campos and House of Representatives Joseph Sanchez all pitched in for that 5.22 million.
So that 5.2, and then you mentioned $1 million in addition to that.
Yes, and also the $400,000 phase 1 grant that we got for design services that's still being drawn upon.
So we'll have close to 7.5 million to spend. All in, we're gonna take some money out of the general fund. We're gonna take money out of the public safety fund. And then his fire protection fund. And then the appropriations from the governor. It'll be close to 7.5 million.
Any other questions?
You had mentioned, you mentioned at the last council meeting, I believe that we were at 99% on design. Is that correct?
As far as layout and design, yes, but not, we don't have blueprints 99%. So
No, construction.
yeah, don't have construction drawings, don't have the trade drawings, but we have design 99% done. I don't know if this is an appropriate forum to talk about that, but they have proposed a couple of different options for us to do like a metal building type shell that would save us quite a bit of money so that we could partition it out into segments so that we could get a shell that looks like a fire station from the outside, but have no interior. If we were trying to save a little bit of money, we potentially could build out all the firefighter living quarters and all the bay apparatus and leave the admin area vacant until we came up with the money to be able to do that or do it all at once. But I can propose that idea in another forum.
Well, it is kind of budget talk, so.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Anyone else?
Chief. So yeah, I'm just kind of going to what's next on top of our sheet, so it is Shay's turn.
Afternoon. Forgot my glasses, so bear with me.
Do you need to borrow here? I've got a big old printout here if you want them.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. Actually, these don't help me. Sorry. Good thought though, thanks. Well, pretty much, I'll just start by the way I have it. It starts with the Allen Fields budget, the 4003.
It was just a second.
Okay,
It's in the,
Oh, I got it right here, yeah. The Parks and Rec? Yeah.
yes, yeah,
general fund.
in the general fund, yeah. And so the 4003, the first one is the repair maintenance grounds, roadways and trails. The 4003 is for Allen Fields and trails. I don't have a separate trails budget right now, so the community center and the Allen Fields budgets kind of include the trails. So, for the 300,000 is part of a grant match. This is, you know, for everything that's going on at the Island Fields, you know, the lights, we're hoping to get the Trails Plus grant again and, that sort of stuff. And then some of the construction costs in addition to the revenue that we have from the loan, the Parks and Rec fee. So that amount is what I'm looking at just to continue the projects that are already going on there. And that is more for, the Allen Fields and a little bit for the trail, the Frank Young Trail that we're working on also. The next one is other contractual services, 70,000. That again it's all for the continuation of what's going on at the Allen Fields. The engineer costs, and then I always have the porta potties out there, and then there's field inspections that are done annually, which are about $5,000, to test the turf and everything like that. And then the next, you know, supplies for the field, that one went up, and that's mainly because I have a feeling we're gonna need some new equipment. We haven't, you know, gotten any new equipment in a while, and so I'm gonna have the turf people come out and talk to me and give me ideas on what sort of equipment that we may need to keep everything maintained. Since we're, you know, putting in all this effort to get lights and whatnot, I figure we're gonna have to update equipment and things here and there too. I know the nets are gonna be needing, the backstops are gonna be needing replaced soon. I'd like to do something different, and this isn't all the 10,000, because that would cost more than that, but I'd like to do something different with the dugouts. There's just a few things, because we haven't replaced any of it since the field opened. So each year I'd like to try to do a little bit of that at a time. And the rest is supplies. That's pretty much the same every year. If I need, one year I needed bases, also that can go back to like soccer field nets and, you know, things like that for the supplies, special events. I don't usually have to do that, but for like trash bags and things like that for the softball tournaments, that's what that is. And that's it. That's the end of the special events for the 4003. Next is the 4007, which is the community center. And it starts with travel and training, the 1,500. That's pretty normal. What ask for every year. I'd like to actually get my playground safety certification, which I kind of started the process a while ago, and then COVID hit and haven't done it again. But since we have a new playground there, wanting to get one out at the Allen Fields also, I think that's a good training to have. So that's just for that sort of stuff. The repair, maintenance, building and structure. Building improvements that have been going on at the community center, the west side of the building, getting that done and fixed. We're already gonna work on it now, but in case there's more, and then with the ongoing boiler situation, that's just kind of a number I came up with until we know exactly what we're gonna have to deal with. And then we also have money this fiscal year also. And then the next one is the repair, maintenance, roadway and trails. Like I said, that's the community center budget is also the trails budget. So a trails plus grant match also, and more trail improvements, and then maintenance for the new Frank Young Trail that we're going to be putting in. I really want to be able to maintain everything new that we're doing, because I think that's very important. Anytime you put something new in, sometimes it doesn't get maintained. And I think that that's something that we really need to focus on adding money to, is to being able to maintain the new things that we're putting in. The next is the vehicles. That's for the day camp, the van. Equipment, various types of equipment. Those are all about the same ask that I do every year. So, other contractual services for the community center. Again, that's for engineering costs, the plumbing, HVAC system, just everything that's been ongoing this whole year. Supplies, non-capital, that's about the same. That's the same as every year. Cleaning supplies, about the same. Landscaping, I did ask for more, and that's because for the playground, I want to try to get that landscaped. The playground looks great, but it's a little sparse everywhere else. So I asked her for a little bit more in that. Safety equipment, new, well, not new, but our defibrillator, we just have to get a new, update it. At first, I wasn't sure if we needed a whole new one, so that could probably come a little bit down. First aid, fire extinguishers, the typical inspections and such for the safety equipment at the center. And this one, oh, the fuel, bulk fuel and oil is for the day camp van. I don't have the Suburbans anymore. I just have the one van. And it's a lot newer than the Suburban, so they probably won't need as much maintenance and such. Building supplies and maintenance. Those are all the same numbers. The next one that jumps up, the next couple are, well, cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone last fiscal year, so that's included in this budget. Also telephone, since it's coming out of the admin, we're now doing our own, so I just kind of guessed at those, like natural gas utilities. I haven't had to put that in my budget for a while, so I kind of guessed on what it had been in the past. So that's where that number comes from. What else? Special events is about the same as every year, just breakfast with Santa, some day camp supplies. Building structures. I'd like to do a shed out at the center for more storage places, some more tables outside, since we're really redoing the playground and everything, and benches and items like that around the playground. And furniture and fixtures, that's about the same as every year, just as needed, nothing in particular that I'm foreseeing. That's all I have, unless you have questions on any of it.
It may be it's just an error on here, but it looks like all of the employees, are they being moved out of this fund into another fund? Because you have history of budget for full-time, part-time and temporary employees, but then nothing requested going forward on the one that I've got.
Oh, well, no, they're still gonna be in there. I don't have the employee information on mine.
Okay.
Yeah, the employee, I sent it back to Kathy with well, I'm not sure with the employees. Were we supposed to put it in? Okay, well, now they're staying in there, yeah.
And then for some reason, the subtotals on mine are weird. It has a 9,000,003 on the bottom. It's not, it's something funky with this sheet here for sure.
Okay. And mine says, yeah, right around there too, but it doesn't show any of the employees on what I printed out, so. But with my employees, it's the same amount, it's the same staff.
I
and,
figured.
yeah.
It's pretty consistent through several years. It just,
Yeah, with the two temporary, day camp staff, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, next up is Director Epler.
Hey, what order are you guys in?
We've got maintenance in front of us, or at least I do.
Okay,
yeah.
if they're in order, it should be maintenance, streets, public works. Okay, I'll start off with maintenance. I'm gonna, touch on, I guess the biggest changes or most, biggest, largest contributors to any increases or changes. In maintenance, in buildings and structures, you'll see that I have an amount in there for their contribution to another building to be placed down at the joint utility shop area, an area that we cleaned out and prepared. This is for maintenance to get their equipment inside and out of the elements. Because space is getting tight with joint utility. But this building will also provide additional storage for the water department. For water components, but also an area to get our pipe stock out of the elements, because it can pipe can be affected by UV and deteriorate over time. And on the labor side, I should have talked about this first. I'm proposing an added position, which would be the fourth position in maintenance. There's currently 3 approved. This fourth position is potentially a person that will take over the custodial services that are currently being done by a contractor. And should be able to do this work for a savings, but also have a person that can do additional work beyond custodial services. The additional equipment requested for maintenance is essentially a 35 horsepower John Deere tractor capable of mowing. We have more mowing duties on our plate now, partly with the addition of the airport. But also partly to my desire to mow more of the village right of ways and maintain them throughout the village in various areas. And it is, something we need to do around all of our facilities. Are there any questions in regards to maintenance?
That'll have some quick attachment capabilities.
Yes, and the tractor will also, we're looking at additional sweeping implements. And it'll help us with snow removal also. Okay. Streets next. Yes, sir. Okay. Streets is a large budget, but again, I'm gonna just emphasize the major points of change. You will see under our materials line item, where last year we were at, I believe, $2.4 million. This is decreased significantly because we're looking at placing more of an emphasis on drainage work. We have a lot of culverts that need to be replaced, upsized. And there will still be some base course material placed, because in some of these scenarios, we not only need to replace the culvert, but we need to elevate the road, and plus we do want to continue with resurfacing some roads that are in dire need of it. We just won't be doing it to the scale in miles that we were last summer. You'll see under other contractual services, the number has dropped from what was budgeted last year. But remember, last year out of, and it will happen this spring, out of budget, we're paying for the paving of Aspen Street and South Angel Fire Road. The portion I have budgeted for the upcoming year is that some of the larger culvert work will potentially be looking at subcontracting that out. An example of that is Moraine Way across from the RV park and stables. It's a 4-foot culvert on the Synagia across the main road, and something we could potentially contract somebody else to do. But we are capable of doing even that, those larger culverts ourselves. The other large item you'll see in equipment is looking to roll in one new motor grader. We have our motor graders are in very good shape, but they are getting years on them. They're relatively low hours comparative to the years. They're very well taken care of. But we are reaching a point where they're gonna start progressively losing more value just due to age. And thought I would just put it in, and the goal would be to roll one out this year. Roll one in this year, potentially one next year, and then the year after that, and then get in a rotation program. Right now we're in the 7th year, I believe, with those machines, so, and they are paid off. We will be getting an appraisal done on the trade-off machine, and or the trade-in machine, I'm sorry. And this could actually allow me to lower the proposed budget number that I have right now. Also, there is we are planning to purchase a larger excavator for all of the projects that we have between Allen Fields, workforce housing, fire station, event center, projects that we intend to do a lot of the excavation work in-house. We have this machine on rent. It actually showed up yesterday. The hope is that we can get a lot of this work done with this larger machine, increase our capabilities. And also hope that it'll be a machine that'll be very valuable to the slash program in the winter time. In handling slash if we get inundated with the slash like we hope we do, people clearing their lots. Also, last year we rolled in 2 new plow trucks. I want to roll two new ones in. These 2 will be F-450s as opposed to F-350s. And the plows and cinder boxes with them as well.
Questions? Public Works?
Public Works, there's no major purchases. We don't need to purchase a vehicle. Budget is actually lower than the previous year. I think the one item that probably shows the biggest percentage change is tools. Because Public Works Director would like to get a few tools because he finds himself needing them and not having them. Thought I'd put it in there. There's really not much to Public Works.
$1,200.
Yeah.
Good enough.
I can become a home builder for $1,200.
You know the right contract, right?
Sorry, sir. Solid waste next.
So with Mac toolboxes, you can't even get a toolbox.
That's
right.
Sorry, I got tourism, rec fund, bond proceeds. Other capital, government debt service, solid waste, fund 502.
Yes, 502 solid waste.
502.
Anybody on board?
In solid waste, the biggest items in there would be buildings and structures and equipment. We also have a significant change in repair and maintenance of buildings. And what this is there's been a desire for quite some time. I don't know if any of y'all have noticed in solid waste, if you look up, there's old insulation falling from the roof. The desire is to pull all the bad insulation out and spray foam insulate the inside. Now, the past few years, it has been on the ICIP report and talk about trying to get grant money to do it. There was even a contractor that gave a bid with a statewide price agreement. It was extremely high, and we're looking at a scenario of potentially going out to a request for bid directly with an insulation contractor to come in and do the spray insulation. On buildings and structures, that's a pretty high number. A portion of that is for scales. We have the desire to put scales at the solid waste transfer station. There'll be 2 50-foot scales set up where people get weighed on the way in and the way out. It appears there's technology available where they'll be able to have the point of sale right at the scales where they get on the scale, swipe their card, get weighed, come through and get charged. We have received finally a response from one vendor. But we will be, next council meeting, I'll be requesting to go out for a request for bid for scales. And there's a chance we could potentially get the work started this fiscal year, but I don't see that it would be completed. So therefore, it'll be budgeted for next year as well. Another thing that we have wanted to do is have an enclosed dumpster site. And part of this money, the site hasn't been decided on yet, but that's still a goal to eventually we have a remote dumpster site to be able to enclose it.
Where with the scales, you're gonna have to change your traffic flow pattern to find a home formable there at that building?
Slightly, as you pull in off of Camino Grande, there's a relatively flat area. And believe with just rerouting the roads a little bit, we'll not only be able to have routes on and off of the scales, but bypass routes also if necessary. It seems to be a relatively large footprint there. It always looks big till you start staking it out. But what I've sent, the one vendor that responded is just a heads up of what we look like, a Google Earth map. He did measurements and I kind of gave him an idea what the grades were. And he thought he said it's more space than they're accustomed to working with, so. One thing I do want to do, and this kind of coincides with what I want to do with maintenance and joint utility and building another facility over, it's basically a metal building over by joint utility area is, if any of you are familiar with it, as you pull into the gate over to the water department, there's a long shed that runs east and west. And then a shed in between that and the water department building. Want to demolish the building that's in the center. It's just, it's open storage, if you will. And about the best thing it does for us is it provides a little bit of storage, but it provides us a lot of shade in our parking area. So the snow never melts when we do get some. But by eliminating that portion of the building, then we can access back to the northwest corner of the property. And this will allow us to take the dumpster site at Halo Pines and expand it to the north by another, it varies 20 to 30 feet. And this will allow us to put more dumpsters in there and increase our capacity. And part of the an uncommon figure you'll see is it's essentially for road-based material, is for the expansion of that, doing the groundwork, basically adding the material to continue the grade over towards that building. Another item a large item you'll see is under equipment, $380,000. This is to replace one of the Packer trucks that we have. The truck is 9 years old. And Mr. Gully feels that this truck is starting to experience more problems and definitely showing signs of age.
So a note. Yesterday I went over to solid waste to drop off things and people were lined up. And it looked like the workload, at least for now, is just increasing. I think people that are concerned about the fact that we are so dry and trying to get ahead of the possible fire season.
Yeah.
Two times what with slag, back to the slash.
No, they actually were backed up dumping inside Ben's building.
Yeah, it can depend, I mean, trust me, I've waited in those lines, it can depend on a lot of things. One, if the Packer truck's emptying, depending on what's been in there, if they're having to clear and so forth, and you just get those. You can go an hour without anybody and everybody shows up at once.
Right, yeah.
Sure, Ben and Kurt can speak better to it.
Yeah, it's it's generally a steady flow, but it can come in waves, and I'm sure they see the same thing. Well, we're right next to Slash, so we see it. And
Right,
sometimes there's a couple people come in and
And
there's other days where it seems like there's just a lot of traffic around there.
you know, the increased slash is a good thing, but
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
traffic there can be heavy at times.
It should be known, even though in the winter time is when we have more people in town. But the amount of solid waste that's taken to the landfill is far greater in the summer than it is in the winter time. Far greater. So, But also with, with the scales, and there's been a lot of feedback on this. One of the problems has been by just measuring yardage, there has a tendency to be inconsistency in what people are charged. And given the fact that all of our expenses associated at the landfill are based on tonnage, we need to move forward with the scales, and obviously we will be creating the pricing structure for that to make sure that one, it covers our costs and that we do continue to produce revenue for solid waste. But we don't want to price it to the point where people start dumping stuff off the cul-de-sacs. Okay, discussion for another time, obviously.
But solid waste, it runs in the black, correct? So I don't imagine that the fees would go up if anything, just back engineer formula. Again, when you're charged by tonnage to charge by tonnage.
We should have, we do have the data on the amount of tonnage that we've hauled, and we should be able to compare that to revenue at the transfer facility and try to get them close, so it's not a big shock. And the biggest feedback I've got from public is just the inconsistency, because different people may measure it a different way.
And what's in the load.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely be in situations where we're charging a higher yardage rate for something that doesn't weigh very much, and vice versa. So this, I think, just gets it cut and dry. Everybody, I think, can then kind of learn to expect what they're going to pay. Contractors hauling a load of scrap lumber, they're gonna know about what it's gonna cost every time.
Is there any, I got stuck waiting in the line behind Pine Needles because I take my aluminum cans out there, and I know they used to be at Halo Pines and we kept having problems with people dumping them. But if that facility does expand, is there a way to maybe get those of us that are just taking recycling out of the line from all the contractors that need the large dumpsters? Or is the concern that if we put the cans back over at Halo Pines, somebody's gonna foul one of those dumpsters again?
Well, and that's why I think it's important, as I mentioned a while ago, that I feel very confident that the footprint is going to allow us to get on and off the scales, but also have drive-through. So I think through signage, we can say recyclables can bypass. Household trash, basic household trash, we don't charge by any means for that. So basic household trash, they need to be able to just go through.
Can you demo that or plan to demo that other building? Is there anything proposed to re-side the other existing one? That's corrugated, kind of match the other building that's there.
I agree, it would be a good thing to do. It would make it look a lot nicer. We could also just build it back brand new too.
Yeah.
It might be close to the city.
Demo it all.
I can't attest to what we have on the inside of that to screw into.
Yeah.
I started working at Houston Lumber one summer when I was 14 years old, and that building was there. So we know it's been a while.
I built the 2 ends.
Any more questions on solid waste?
Not, I would next to the joint utility.
$521.
Okay. On labor with joint utility, you'll actually see that there's a reduction in budget number from last year. And with this, we're actually adding a head count. as you recall, in changing the organizational structure and promoting people from within and eliminating the manager position, we also have two more labor positions that we were able to put in. And yet it still reflects savings from last year. On just if you look at full-time employees, you'll see the difference.
Shows. Four, 5 to 7, or request.
Oh, yeah, you budget versus actual.
Yeah, you're looking at that.
Got it.
This number.
Okay.
This is green, this is right.
Larger line items, other contractual services. You'll notice a reduction in that. I will say that part of this was my lack of understanding on what the accounts were and how they were handled. A lot of what was budgeted last year for other contractual services, thinking that, you know, anything that we bought from anybody or had anybody else do was other contractual services. We ended up actually borrowing a lot of money from other contractual services over to utility plant and service. And this was a lot of our backup pumps, a lot of our components. We're looking at a lot of those pumps in the future is actually having them in 5/8 accounts, which they should be able to be considered assets, given the life expectancy that they have. So even though the number's down quite a bit, my note on this is one of the things that we want to get done that I feel we'll have to employ some other contractual services on is we have areas that have been year after year after year freezing. You know, we have to put bleeders on and a whole bunch of, there's one road, stretch of Via de Maria that in particular that, and I've spoke with our engineer about this as a viable plan, but we need to dig down to within 18 inches of the pipe, add foam insulation, backfill back up and elevate the road a little bit. Just adding a little material on the road isn't going to do it. So we have a section of main there that freezes up consistently. And we have other areas throughout the village that want to do this. It's just been an ongoing thing, and when it's all said and done, it's going to take a lot less time to fix it than it will take us to continually deal with it moving forward. Another, let's see, utility plant and service, probably one of the bigger line items on that is we have every so often the water tanks need to be cleaned out and recoated on the inside. Tanks 2 and 4 are the ones in greatest need for that right now, just because it's been a while since they've been done. I have that listed. Buildings and structures, added in again, the booster station buildings. We did go out to RFP this year, got 0 response after 2 cycles of RFP. So I'll be looking to see if in this fiscal year I can directly negotiate with a contractor to get 1 or 2 of those buildings done. But it's something we're probably gonna have to do the next few years, a couple at a time to get them all done. And of course, in building and structures is the joint utility portion of the storage area to be shared with maintenance. The water department. Next large line item is equipment. The water department will be paying a portion of the purchase of the large excavator intended to be used jointly with Streets Department. If, we have not finalized a discussion on if, this machine is going to be viable for Slash. So at this point, I have, both halves of that purchase, distributed between joint utility and streets. And, you know, hopefully before May, now that we actually have the machine on site. And it's digging out next to, Camino Grande right now, if y'all wanna go take a look at it. But I would think between now and our next budget meeting, we might be able to, well, we will get it over to the Slash area, handle some Slash with it, work with those guys and see if it's something that will be viable for them to work the large quantities of Slash this winter. Also, under equipment, we need to get a second back trailer, Vermeer back trailer. This is for vacuum excavation around utilities, and now that we're running strong with 2 crews, trying to balance one between the 2 crews is not working out real well. Back trailer has proven to be an absolute necessity, and I will actually be presenting this trailer at next council meeting to be paid for at Go Bond dollars. So if we get that approval, then I would be taking that out of the joint utility budget. Questions?
Mr. Mayor, I don't think we've printed off the Go Bond budgets to, I would.
Where do I see it? I see it. I think it's in here.
Oh. 301. 301. First, you want to talk about that a little bit? Sure thing, I'm doing with Go Bond. Do the 25 inch.
I added the line items.
Have Go Bond debt service, what's the number we're looking for?
301. 301.
Bond proceeds.
Debt service is 401.
Those are the bond proceeds.
So we have the bond proceeds. Yeah.
Okay, if you look at the GL codes, the center number will indicate what year Go Bond it's for. And you'll see there's nothing budgeted for 2022. Even though there are dollars remaining in 2022 Go Bond, we need to extend those funds by June 14th. And we'll get that done. One thing I do want to point out is that there has been a line item that hasn't been in there in the past. Generally, the 2 line items are professional services and other contractual services. We've added an equipment line because these Go Bonds can be used for the purchase of equipment. In fact, the current back trailer that the Village of Angel Fire has was purchased with Go Bond dollars. I should get verification tomorrow on if the back trailer can be delivered by June 14th. They're pretty confident that it can. But if so, that would come out of 2022 Go Bond, which is not reflected on that. In all our Go Bond dollars, except for the 2022, are split 50-50 between streets and joint utility. With joint utility, the larger portion of the Go Bond dollars goes to plan and design. In fact, you know, we have a significant commitment to Go Bond with the plan and design for Monte Verde Lake. Streets, the money in streets, I've tried to keep it as something that's visible and tangible to people. We've the paving that we did last summer on Arapahoe and 5 Springs Road, that was done with Go Bond dollars. And we'll want to continue to try to do projects in streets with the go bond dollars, but if it makes more sense, if we're rolling in a motor grader to pay for it out of go bond dollars, we might be able to make that call prior to the next budget meeting. And if that's the case, then in streets, we would see that backed out of the equipment line item.
Okay.
And that's why, what you're looking at is, I guess what I'm trying to say is in joint utility, it'll be a higher percentage for professional services than it will for other contractual services. And it'd be the opposite in streets.
Mr. Epler?
Water rights.
Yeah, I have one for water rights in here.
You can do it if you want.
Yeah, we're prepared to.
I'm not really prepared for it.
Mr.
Apologize.
Manager Ware, do you want to speak to it?
Basically, the money that's in water rights, needs to be spent for the acquisition of water rights. We have some debt service in there that needs to be continued to be paid. But as soon as we work out a deal with someone on new water rights, most of that money will get expended. That's in there. We'll need additional money beyond that. Water rights is gonna be an expensive venture.
Sir? After all the shuffling, I've got the airport up next. So, Mr. Gilmer.
Saving the best for last.
Mayor, Council. I'm gonna start out with a disclaimer, and I know Manager Weir will probably want to jump in, but he's up here. New department, new budget, based on an incomplete county budget that was given to us last fall. So in the realm of best guess budgeting, the airport's in crystal ball vision territory. We have some numbers, but we really don't know what we don't know in some cases. We're going back 5 years for the county budgets and looking, we found out there's a few things that are missing in here, and they tend to be a little bit of high dollar items. So those aren't even in this, they're not even listed. And I'll kind of talk about that real quick on there. So what I'm promising you, to the best of my ability, is endeavor to keep costs down, to improve the revenue, and to look for more grant funding. Most of our large capital expenses from here on out, we're gonna look for grants to get those things paid for. So kind of with that thought, I know you just had a chance to look at it. I think that where we're at, and what I'm talking about is we had an issue just in the last month where the line item for insurance for liability insurance for the airport that was not listed in the county came up at a pretty high dollar amount, $33,800. Lo and behold, the budget we just got a week ago has it in there, but not when we looked at it before. So when I was building this, or sorry, Brett was building this budget, we were talking about this budget. That wasn't even accounted for. So there's some of those items like that. Another one, if I look down at the bottom that doesn't exist that we realize we need is FAA state mandated inspections. So there's gonna be times that we have found out that stuff just jumps up and says, oh, you didn't know you had to get that done? Some of these inspections are every 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, those type of things that are kind of hitting the budget hard. if you look where we're at year to date right now on what Brett put together and we spoke about, we're way under spending really to this budget. So we're really pretty good shape. I intend to keep that moving throughout this year. One of the things that in this budget that you see we didn't address was the fact that we didn't talk about the airplane speak, the sharing of the roads and being able to use their equipment. And so I'm gonna keep those numbers in there because when Kurt's department has to expend to work on airport equipment, of which we have 4 pretty permanent vehicles, then, you know, money can flow back to him. So those things will stay in there. The biggest really expense that you'll see in here is for fuel, for aviation, fuel for jet and under low lead. The nice thing about that is not only an expense, but it's also revenue. So if I average it out and sell $80,000 worth of fuel, then I'm gonna look at a $25,000 profit out of that. And some of the other items, I think a standard line item was, I saw for just bulk fuel and oil. Well, in our case, that actually represents revenue also, instead of just expenditure, because we buy oil to sell. We keystone that, so every quart that we sell, we double that money. So I'm excited about where we're gonna end up a year from now, when we can actually create a real budget. And we'll have real numbers to start with for the first time, and we'll have real line items to be able to go back and look at and say, here's at least a baseline. I'm not saying I'm throwing out what the county gave us, but looking at the past 5 years, it's so wonky of where things were spent, and that's another discussion, and things that they're gonna have to deal with. But, that's pretty much where I'm at this point. So I'm here for questions, and please, you got them, ask them.
Mr. Ray, the only thing I'd like to add to that is the employment expenses at the airport are gonna be higher this year because we're going through this transitional process of taking ownership. And that requires not only professional services, additional expense, but also, you know, honestly, thank God Jeff is here because the expertise he's bringing in to be able to manage that transfer. I don't know how we would do it without someone with his knowledge. And, you know, that's something that once a transfer is complete, I think we have a different level of personnel that will be able to utilize at the airport, which will bring costs down a little bit.
Yeah, I can go back to retirement.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, we were in your shoes just a year ago.
Yeah, right, yeah, you're stepping up. One of the things I do want to bring up, if I just take a half second, I would like, and it's not, again, not on this budget, but I think it may come up as a consideration for revenue's sake. Everybody knows about the old terminal that's down there. The more I look at the old terminal, the more I see dollar signs, the more I see revenue. The downside is it has to be rehabbed. Needs a new roof, needs to be cleaned, deck needs some attention, but I really believe, and a fence put up so it would be secured away from the airport. But that's a source of revenue, and I believe within our contract, we can do that. We can go out there and rent that. During the summertime, no kidding, 2 or 3 people a week come in and ask to lease that building. They want to put a coffee shop or something in it. So even if we turn shops in there, I still think we would have a pretty good consistent revenue stream down the road. And then maybe someday it becomes housing for an airport manager or something, but just a consideration that's, again, not a line in there.
Does it have running water?
Yeah, it does have running water. It has sewer, so it's got septic system in. And I believe we're 100 yards from tying into to the village's septic system, if we want to, we have,
It's on the others.
it's on the other side of the highway.
At the bore under the highway.
So it's there.
It's on a well.
I didn't think it was actively hooked up to I mean, I know there's water there, but I
There's
didn't think
well water, yeah.
it was just hooked up.
Yeah,
still?
oh
We
yeah.
have to go on village
What?
water and newer though. Yeah.
Anyhow, just again,
To
it's.
your point, I've been asked about it, not, I mean, probably that many times a year.
Exactly.
Uh,
Okay. The other thing too, I will share with you all that today, this is the kudos to our consulting firm in dealing with some other issues that came up. I just got flat asked, would you like a tug? And I'm like, oh yeah, cause ours is dead, you all might know that. Would you like a de-icing truck? What? You'll have to drive to Maine to get it. I got an airport's trying to get rid of 3 de-icing trucks and a couple of tugs. And I'm thinking,
Road trip.
road trip.
Flat out there.
Hey, who wants-
Where'd you say they are?
Yeah, Maine. Who wants to do a road trip to Maine?
Never been.
Okay. Any other questions? I didn't even tell you that, so.
You bring some lobster back.
You have 6 drivers back here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're gonna wait till the fall, right? When the colors come out? Yeah, there you go.
How many days travel, lights and sirens? 3?
Thank you very much. All right, I think for our last presentation, we have Director Ralph.
The mayor, council, manager. When I started in this position a year ago, I was given a heads up by someone here that if you're good at anything, you'll get asked to do more. I'm not sure I'm good at anything, but my job has evolved. And one of the things I'd like to give a high level talk on is the fact that a lot of my time and efforts right now are not going in directly to lodgers tax programs. And same thing with Caroline, as she's administering business licenses and lodgers tax permit program where revenue comes in but doesn't necessarily go to tourism. Brent and I talked today about possibly moving half of our expenses, Caroline's and my salary and the things that are encumbered with our salaries to general funds, tourism department. Right? No, lodging department, no. Economic development department, I knew there was something there. Okay, there's no public here, right? Okay, we're good. So that'll be coming to council. I think that comes as a presentation in the next council meeting. And we'll be making our budget adjustments accordingly there. But as you know, I have a bit of a gift for gab and I'm doing podcasts and writing newspaper columns and doing other things now that are more in communication with the village, things that I like to do, things that we need doing. So I just want to get those allocated properly. As we move forward in the budget, we're maintaining $300,000 in special events to make sure we have the excitement, the entertainment things happening up here to bring people on a regular basis. Advertising will have to be adjusted based on other expenses as we go through our next round. We are shooting for $1.4 million in total expenses.
No.
In
Revenue.
$1.4 million in revenue, and that is based upon the fact that I am forecasting a 20% increase in lodgers tax revenue based on our new software. Tightening up the regulations, finding the people that haven't been contributing the right amount, going and collecting those funds. We're looking at a 20% increase there. The other $200,000 increase that I'm forecasting is based on our marketing efforts. I think that we've got a good track record on the performance of our ad campaigns. Last summer, we did take a 3-month timeout that hurt us. This year, we're keeping our foot on the floor. And I'm comfortable in forecasting a 20% growth in lodgers tax revenue just on increased visitors. an additional 20% on tightening up the accounting. So that would account for the 40% increase in the lodger's tax revenue, which would give us $1.4 million. Looking at other funding sources, we've got grants in, I've got $150,000 tourism marketing co-op grant out, a $50,000 grant out for event sponsorship. So there's $200,000 that we're looking for in event funding moving in the future. And then as we get into planning this building, we'll be looking at tourism TEGS grants, the economic, where the state contributes to building facilities for us. But that wasn't listed on our project list, so we couldn't apply for that this year. So I'm looking at additional funding sources, additional revenue. We hopefully next year, we're doing concerts and events that are ticketed. So I can get some revenue from these events, from these bigger concerts. Not all the concerts, but a few of them. Get some revenue there, get some sponsorship dollars as we build out our brand.
You have your rents in here?
Yeah, it's in there.
Your biggest item, your building and structures, I'm assuming is.
The down payment
The
on
down
the
payment on.
Yeah.
events.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'll see, it should be 1.6 in there. We kind of did a last.
Yeah.
page.
I see it.
it was 2
It
million.
was too, but, we're going for a smaller facility, a 16,000 square foot facility. We are budgeting 1.6, which would be a 10% down payment on a loan to build that building.
Ralph. Thank you very much.
Well,
Manager Weir, we have a few items left. I don't know if you want to speak to them. Good one. For capital project. But
So in the fund 39900, it's other capital projects. This is, simply where we get grants for, many of our grants that aren't directly related to, say, infrastructure or roads. We'll go into here, and we're shooting for a lot of grants. We're shooting for grants in relation to the new event center, a lot of trails grants, Allen Fields and so on. And so those grants will be actually posted in this account 39900. And it's, it's an estimate in here. We're hoping to get, $4.5 million in grants for all these miscellaneous projects. And we're hoping we can spend it all in the same year. That's if that one is. It's a pretty high end, when you're dealing with grants, you'd always rather estimate them high. It just saves you on paperwork later, and it doesn't hurt anything if you don't get them. So that's the 399 fund is miscellaneous grants that we use to build capital projects. Anything else?
I thank everybody for, I know budget season is a lot of work in addition to your normal day, so thank you all for doing that. Look forward to seeing the revisions in May. I want to thank everybody in attendance for staying awake for this. This meeting is adjourned.